Hello, intrepid viewers. Dr. Lena Rodriguez coming to you from Thursday, and you'll get this on Wednesday as an illustration of my superpowers. So good to be back. Now, all good news first. First, we have, the DOJ suing Texas over their very clumsy, crude attempts at redistricting, effectively wiping out the votes of African American and Hispanic voters wherever they could. But they did it so badly that let's hope the DOJ will follow this through and come up with some sort of remedy. But at least they're being sued for it. Okay. Pence's Chief of Staff, Mark Short, is cooperating with the Jan 6 committee. That's important. I'm not going to read on him because if he's worked for Pence for 10 years, he'd have to be pretty boring too. I'm just thinking they've got to meet the threshold, So I think he is beyond dull, but I think this is Pence's chance. By putting Mark Short up there, he can say all the stuff that Pence should say in the first person, but it's a way of getting it out there, So that's good. And the Yeti wouldn't know his name. So we'll see what happens there. The third thing, this is juicy. Amazon, run, of course, by Jeff Bezos, who made, what was his profit? His profits went up 220% in the last quarter, 220%. Right? Anyway, workers in Europe took him to court and they have got better working conditions. So they've got a higher hourly rate, but most importantly, they've got more secure contracts and better scheduling. So they know 2 weeks out, a month out, how many hours they'll be working instead of this 0 hours contract. You might get 6 hours one week and 66 the next, but you don't know what's happening. So you can't plan and you can't have a life. And it's the abuse of casual workers. So that's a win for Amazon workers in Europe. So let's hope, and they did that by striking, coming to the table, negotiating. So let's hope that catches on. Be very pleased with that. And in other news, Oregon has decriminalized recreational drugs to the extent they're now moving funding into harm minimization, retraining, and other things. This, I think, as a sociologist here, this is the way forward. We've wasted 40 years with the war on drugs. Just say no to drugs. Who can forget Nancy Reagan? That went well, Nancy. All it does is it criminalizes people who are just indulging in small amounts of recreational drugs as much as someone who's a fully fledged addict. It pushes the whole market into the illegal domain of organised crime. It's been a disaster. And then we, the taxpayer, pay enormous amounts to keep people in jail for drug offences when they need rehabilitation. So by flipping the script and using the same money as you would spend jailing someone on rehab, and often people don't even need the rehab, they're people who just got caught with, small amounts and they have a life. But those who need rehab are not getting it anywhere, and they need to have access to those facilities. So go Oregon. Now, I'm almost ready. Who are we going to kick off with? Mark Meadows. So Mark Meadows has announced he's suing Nancy Pelosi and the whole January 6th. Really? Now, why this is weird is he's already given them tons of documents. He's already complied with that and then said he was going to testify, and then he's pulled back. Now, apparently he put forward even 35 pages of PowerPoints from the day of January 6th. And so real flesh on the bones. So it doesn't make sense he's doing this, because we're going to see another Sesame Street court case. Oh, executive privilege. And yet another judge will say, love, I said, honey, I said, pet, the Yeti isn't the president. Joe Biden's the president. They have to break the news to them each time. Brand new day, brand new day. So why is Mark Meadows even doing this? Let's have a look. I also want to look at the new head of SDNY after this. Meadows, what's he doing with this stupid court case? Well, look, more legals. What has Mark Meadows got in the centre of this reading? The devil. Okay, now he chose to chain himself to the devil. Note the loose chains. He could break off. No, he elected to do this. His challenge now is he wants to break away from Trump. Now, the problem with this for him is at this point, he is still chained. And let's face it, the Yeti, I'm amazed he didn't have a coronary when he found out how much Mark Meadows had delivered to the committee. Maybe he doesn't know. That's entirely possible, right? We've got 7 of Cups. Maybe it hasn't filtered through all the toadies between Trump and the real world. Maybe no one's had the guts to actually break it to him yet. He might not know how far Mark Meadows has gone. But in any event, Meadows knows he has displeased Satan. Now, that wouldn't be comfortable, would it? Now, he's got these cards. He's in a bit of two minds. There's part of him, there's a residual part of him that grew up as a hand on the heart flag waving American who's a bit uncomfortable with the Yeti's day-to-day procedurals, right? He's actually not entirely comfortable, even though he's been part and parcel of it. And this to me is like his conscience. His conscience is going, another legal card, right? But the problem for him is this. He can't actually make a clear decision. I think this is a front so he can keep going. This is, you know, having a pleasant life and getting on with it. Well, staying out of jail would be a head start, wouldn't it, love? So I think he's trying to go back to this life, but he doesn't know how to do it. And he doesn't know how to deal anymore, who does, with the Yeti. So I think he's hoping that this will just get lost in the clouds, literally, that it'll get lost in the chaos and volume of stuff that's happening. I think he's not committed to this court case at all. I think it's a stalling tactic. And I think that's all he can do is go back to the Yeti and go, well, I'm taking them to court, you know, and you'll say, you know, your executive privilege. So depending what side of the bed the Yeti gets out of, and I don't think he sleeps there, but that's another story. The Yeti might find that enough and go, oh, okay, he's suing them. He's one of mine, you know. Or the Yeti could be maintaining the rage, in which case Mark Meadows would be mincemeat behind the scenes. So in any event, just one more look at this, just to point out in the cup here, this is the castle and this is the dragon. And it's like the dragon's trying to get out of the cup. That's what Mark Meadows feels like. He's trying to get away from the castle, and this court case is sort of just buying him time. These people have no conviction, do they? There's just no inner strength. There's no core. You know, they sold themselves out now 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And if you live in that artificial land for that long, you know, you lose all sense of direction. Yeah. All right. So we're going to look at the new guy who's replacing Cy Vance at SDNY. Why is this important? It's really, really important because these are the ones who are doing Trump.org. All right. This is the real meat and gravy of all these court cases. I think Alvin Bragg actually did the case on Trump University and won. Can you let me know if that's correct or not, viewers? I like to keep the record straight. Okay, so in other news, while I'm shuffling, Australia. Now, we have had endless stories and scandals coming out of our parliament, which is like our Congress, about bullying, about sexual harassment. Years of it, years of it. A report has just been released. 1,700 people spoke up to the people compiling the report. That's a lot of people to say I was bullied or, you know, inappropriate sexual stuff and worse, right? 1,700. It was released, and then, sorry, I've just got to look at my notes here on then. Oh, yes. Then a female parliamentary woman went in and talking about another subject. And these same guys, the report was 1 day old, saying how badly behaved, you know, what an animal house the Australian Parliament was. 1 day. And they were growling and barking like dogs while she spoke. I mean, really. And on top of that, and it might be some way of explaining it, Australia has just been crowned the drunkest country in the world. So fair and balanced, you can't say I just point fingers at America. No, 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 no. Australians drink like there's no tomorrow. And in fact, 3.9% had to be hospitalised from their drinking benders. You know, it has to be pretty bad to be carted off to hospital. You know, it's countries drink differently, but that's a story for another day. We drink like the Russians and the Germans, which is you drink to get drunk as opposed to heightening the experience or going with a nice meal. No, 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 no. Nah. Okay, focus, Lena. I'm on, what's his name? What's his name? Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg. Is he going to come through? Is he going to go hard on Trump.org? Is he going to go through? Trump.org. Alvin Bragg. Oh, please. Oh, God, this card, the Seven of Cups, came up first. I did a lot of shuffling. Oh, okay. It has a different thing here. Oh, I like this through line. I like this through line. Okay. So importantly, in the middle of his 5-carder, the Hierophant, law and order, this is him literally embodying what needs to happen, right? Okay. Trump.org has existed, entertainment purposes only, has existed to commit crimes. That's what it does. That's its business model. That's its business practice. That's what it does. That's all it does, right? Because, and I'm not even being vicious and unkind, How many court cases of Trump not paying contractors, of pyramid schemes that fall over and rip people off like Trump Org and like his adult criminal offspring? So I'm very pleased to see that at the centre. He's going to have a fresh start with this. Now, let's hope it's more of a head start than a fresh start. We don't want him starting from scratch. He shouldn't have to. But here's the thing. The meaning of this card this time is it's so difficult. Obviously, behind the scenes, they have got millions of documents. Again, that's not an exaggeration. They have taken possession of millions of documents, and they've got to wade through that. So you've got to wade through what was legal, what was dodgy or quasi-legal, what was radically illegal, who serviced what. The confusion symbolized by this card is, I think, tracking the money through offshore identities and so forth. But why I think this is a big deal, normally this would be my Yeti card or an equivalent merchant, but this has got a Russian vibe today. I think part of the confusion is how much of the money they've been playing with for the last 15 years is Russian oligarch money. And I think they're struggling. This is what they're struggling with, the strategy. Sorry, let me just slow down. They can trace things like Alan Weiselberg and the sons and the daughters being, given apartments to live in and cars and things, and, that sort of low-key fraud, right? Continuous, but let's say low-key, compared with the big guns. And it operated as a washing machine. And if you remember the name Felix Sater, S-A-T-E-R, Felix Sater, he was the first years ago, probably the best part of 20 years ago, who said to the Yeti, and this is heavily documented, Russian guys need to launder money. You're in real estate in the US. They can buy your properties. They're happy, you're happy. I'll take my cut. Isn't it a beautiful world, right? That was Felix Sater. 10 years later, he famously said to the Yeti, darn, we're going to end up in jail for some of this, right? He could even see, he was a player, he could even see where it was going. So there were these massive amounts, different pots of Russian money. And I think this is part of the holdup for SDNY. I think because this is big stuff that compromised national security, because the Yeti went on to become 45. So they had two big investigations that have been brought into one. I'm getting the vibe with the two that it needs to be separated again. And I think we might start to hear maybe in 3 or 4 months much more about the Russian money and Trump Org, as opposed to just money for jam for his adult children. Okay, now I'm not quite satisfied, so I'm just going to do another clarifier or two on Alvin Bragg. Is he up to the job? Is he the right guy for the job? Is he the right guy for the job? Pentacles and devil. Oh, good. Oh, good, good, good. Okay. This is not easy work, working. I mean, looking at what these people do, it's very mucky. Inevitably, big money and big pressure is brought to bear. But I think he's up to it. This is a symbolic justice figure with the blindfold of justice, the swords of justice. This is the crossroads. And this came in the middle of these two. So he's brave enough to look at the money that created this wrongful, illegal behaviour. So I hope so, is all I can say about that. Now, I was going to look, and I will look in a minute. There were threats and harassment to election workers in Georgia, really serious ones, and specifically one woman and her daughter. She only did it as a favor, as a volunteer or something. And then a right-wing news organisation outed her name and address. They were monstered by these uglies. Absolutely terrible. So let's see. They're people who should be suing. They should have been protected as electoral workers. God, he's true. Fancy doing that. Fancy a then president doing that, blaming an electoral worker. And they were saying things like, oh, this is a picture of them changing votes or not counting votes or something. Oh, here's a snippet you may have missed. You know, Mr. McPillow suing Dominion voting machines and voting machines suing him and all that saga that's going on. When they looked at the fine print, Trump won more often in counties that use the Dominion machines. And so that undermines his whole legal argument. They actually did all right because it's not the machines in this case, it's people. Okay, so these election workers in Georgia, oh, let's pray. Election workers in Georgia. Election workers in Georgia. Will they be successful? So these two women who were just doing their civic duty, trying to do the right thing. Okay. And okay, when all's said and done, this is working away at the issue. I don't think they're going to get a very good judge. This is a bit like the Rittenhouse thing. It's all in the judge, isn't it? It shouldn't be, but in this case it is, because their next cards are loss and distress. They will get compensation, but nowhere near what they deserve. And I think they've got the ordeal of having to go through this whole trial and the expense of it and everything when the payout comes, by the time the lawyers' fees are taken out, etc. I don't like those cards for them, I have to say. They're brave women and I wish them all the best. They will get something, but not as much as they deserve, because I think it really did freak them out, and that's something that money can't make right. So, just to finish here, just a little bit. I was watching someone last night, it might have been Bracker Goldsmith, who was talking about all the tension and chaos and stuff that's going on every day for all of us, but most particularly for you guys in the US. But remember, it is global. Please remember it's global, because this lurch to the right and everything else and these stupid populist heads of countries who don't know anything about politics and only want to take over, and climate change and everything else, these are global issues. But she was saying, think of it as turbulence. And you need, you know, when you're flying, you need to rise above the turbulence to get to the smooth bit again. So Bracker, if that was you, thank you. If it wasn't, apologies to whoever it was. But I love that image. So with all this stuff that's going on, that, you know, your attention's every which way, and you're so worried about the future of the country and the future of democracy and the future of how you're going to navigate your own life. Remember, every day, take some time out to rise above the turbulence and just soar. good for the soul. Thank you, guys. I'll be back in a flash. Take care. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Bye.